Hi, I'm black. I went to go and get, eggs, milk, and some cigarettes, some menthol cools. And found out that being absent too long is for goddamn fools. And while I don't feel, any better than, well, when I left, really, honestly, life sucks for freaking everything and everybody. I figure I'll do what I always do and put one foot in front of the other until eventually I walk straight off the cliff and then have to just face the ground for however long it takes to hit it. Speaking of stories that are pretty whack, I haven't done this in a hot minute. It's MikeBurnFire. I don't know if anybody knows him or if nobody knows him or if somebody does. Don't really care. I enjoy his stories. He's a fellow former grunt, technically, in many ways speaking. And I like this idea. Best military experiences, campfire stories. Best military experiences, you say? The best military? You know what? I think I might like this. Wait, I forgot my green screen. Hold up a sec. Let me throw on my cloak of invisibility from fucking Harry Potter. Ugh. There we go. Cool. Awesome. Sweet. That being said, happy Veterans Day, where America likes to tell you that you're only so important as only a single day will give you, even though you do more for the entire nation than almost everybody else. That being said, there wouldn't be a nation without veterans. So, since most people won't actually truly say it and mean it, I'll say to my fellow veterans, thank you for still putting up with the crap. That being said, let's get back. From MikeBurnFire, best military experiences. Let's go. Take it away, bub.
Did I tell you about the time I applied to be a fireman? No. I was looking for a job, and I saw an ad that said, we need firefighters.
Ooh.
And I thought, awesome, I'm going to call and apply for this job. Because I just got out of boot camp. I am in the best physical state in my entire life.
Yes.
I'm in the reserves, so I have to do that on the weekends. But I still need a job for the weekdays. Maybe I could be a firefighter.
Yeah,
So,
why not?
Yeah, I gave them a call and said, I hear you're looking for firefighters. And they say, yeah, you think you'd be a good fit for the job? I said, sure, I think I could probably do it.
So it's very funny how much closely representative this is to a lot of my own experience. Okay, maybe I need a double green screen because the freaking shit. Ah! Stop freaking flying everywhere. Goddamn, you're annoying. All right, that being said, it's really funny because I have applied to be a firefighter quite a few times. There's just something cool about being able to go in there, fight an element of nature that's very extremely both positive for us and negative for us, and being able to literally fight it, right? Using another element. It's kind of like being an airbender, Or at least the idea of being an airbender without the ability to just actually bend stuff to your will through magical connection or something. Anyway, but yeah, and it was actually pretty cool. All right, I got to do like the whole training tour thing. And I got to tag along with the dudes and stuff and the few gals that were there for token reasons. Just to say, oh, we got our diversities, whatever. And yeah, found out the hard way. They didn't want me. They wanted the two females that were applying alongside me for reasons not related to actually doing the goddamn job. So after that, I said, fuck it, not going, right? But it was more petulant than anything, really, because they already said, we're sorry, we're not going to take you. And then I found out later the two females that applied alongside me, they took them instead. And then later on, when I checked in with that same fire department because they were doing free CPR training and I wanted to get that, I found out from one of the dudes that also applied like a little bit after me, those two females lasted like 3 months. And then, yeah, they screwed up big time. And they got one of the guys, killed because he had to try and save them from them being stupid and all this. Well, anyway, long story short, it was a bad idea to do DEI for something that literally has to save lives. But yeah, it's so funny how some of this does line up with like my real life experience, right? It's it's just funny in a way. Anyway, I'll stop ranting. Let's go.
I've got the heart and soul for it. And they said, well, here's the thing. We're going to need you to join the U.S. Navy to be a firefighter
Oh my God.
in the U.S. Navy. And I said, I don't think I can do that. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think I can join the reserves in both the Navy and the Marines.
Wouldn't that be cool though? You know, I used to think like, wait, everybody's very similar in many different ways, right? You know, across the board, you got to be able to do a few fundamental things functionally to a certain level of competency. So why not, if you're like reserves or something like that, you can't just branch across? And even when I've looked at the differences between, you know, MOSs and stuff like that, and the different systems they use, and all of that other, you know, peripheral things, when you compare them all at their basic fundamental levels, if you're in reserve of any kind, right, why can't you just be, you know, shared manpower all the way across? Right. Every way I've looked at that, I couldn't see why that couldn't be a thing. Your reserve. Now, for active duty, that would be completely different, right? Because active duty, you are, well, it's in the name. You're active, meaning you're in this spot, you're on this role, right? And you're accountable to this and that and this and that. Every single level, there's a chain that leads from you all the way to the top when it comes to accountability. What you're going to do, how you're going to do it, all them things. But if you're reserve, why can't you just have a shared skill set across branches? I've yet to find something. Well, I've gotten a few answers about this, right? But I have yet to truly find something that can't be knocked into the water or, you know, have a holes blown through it all aplenty where I can't just counter. However, but even for these MOSs, they have an equivalent in another branch. Assets might change, come and go. Budgeting and stuff may change, come or go. So anyway, yeah, y'all let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But yeah, you know, because I've done a lot of joint task force stuff, right? I've worked with everybody. Yes, literally everybody, including fucking spooks. And I hate spooks. Urgh. Anyway, whether they're a necessary evil or not, I'm not really sure. But that being said, I worked with everyone, and we had so much more in common across all of the branches, including our peripheral agencies and such, and intergovernmental organizations that operate not exactly military or private sector or, you know, just government in general, but outside of it as well. And we all had a lot more shit in common on basic fundamentals, period, than we had everything else different. Then we had damn, freaking winter. But yeah, I've worked with everybody, and so I don't know. Y'all let me know what you think. But you know, I've worked with them all. You name them, I've done something with them.
One man cannot have two masters.
Yeah.
I guess the Marines are technically a department of the Navy, but I can't be a watersmith and also a firefighter at the same
You
time.
just wanted to play with hoses, admit it.
I wanted to cut out the middleman, get the hoses from one end to the other. Streamline this process.
I did have something similar to that where when I was like trying to find jobs, and I would go on like Indeed or other like job websites and small arms or firearms or something like that.
Your application said you had small arms. I don't think you're gonna be able to fit in this T-Rex suit.
No.
Oh, God. I have made a hell of an achievement recently. I've gone over 9,000 applications in about 5 years. And now I'm going back to school to use my GI Bill to stave off my seemingly economic and financial fucking doom. Because my retirement check doesn't pay for shit. Hey, where's that great economy I was promised? Why is it only benefiting the ultra-rich and wealthy? Where's those billions of dollars that was supposed to go in the economy, free up stuff, and, give me work? At this point, just send me back to Afghanistan to invade it by myself. I'll freaking go take Bagram single-handed.
I'm sorry.
Just give me a damn job.
You misunderstood. The application was for I have small arms and I want people with long arms to get the soup off the top shelf for me.
I see.
So I went to apply for the job and it's like, yes, we're looking for qualified people to enlist in the Army National Guard. And I'm like, close the tab.
Brilliant.
It's like, close the tab, get rid of it. That is the exact job that I just left.
I hate how they do that shit. I really hate how they do that shit. So when you go on Indeed, certain jobs will pop up, and it's like, oh, that sounds great. And then you click on it, look at the details, and you find out that what's not mentioned in the headline of the job advertisement must enlist and name the branch. Or a few times you'll find must commission in the name your branch. Literally, it should be legally compulsory for them to put in the headline of the frickin' job advertisement, put something like, for the U.S. Army or for the Coast Guard or for the Navy or, per the whatever. Like, put something there where people aren't wasting their time.
What they don't tell you about the Army when you enlist. Nobody told me this. Not one single person. And if they did, they told me like they were an auctioneer. And this part of the contract, and this part of the contract, sign right here, sign right here, sign right here. Sold! You are now in the U.S. military. When I joined the military, they said, okay, you have enlisted for 3 years. What they don't tell you is that your contract is for 8 years.
3 years active, 5 years inactive reserves.
Yes.
That's how they get you. Every contract's about 8 years long.
Which, this is something, in my experience, was actually flipped. Because I read the fine print. Right? And, when I got to get an infantry guy, because that's what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to go and fight. I want to be on the front line. I want to go and do this shit. This is what I want to do. What gets me there faster? They said infantry. I said, okay, I'll take infantry. But I had the recruiter I originally had was a Pogue. If I remember correctly, he was pretty sure he was a 88 Mike. I think it was an 88 Mike initially. And then he had to turn me to the infantry recruiter guy because he didn't, surprisingly enough and hilariously enough, he didn't know much about infantry. He just knew they were combat. Which I'm like, wait, you're in the Army. You're a senior non-commissioned officer. You didn't know about the jobs of other specialties in order to be a recruiter. Are you goddamn kidding me? Who the hell failed you or passed you? But that being said, I finally got to the infantry recruiter. And when we were doing the contract stuff, he was like, all right, well, these are the options for contracts and all that. And I was like, okay, I'll take the shortest one I can. And so he was like, all right, so it'll be this many years, and it'll be, all this combined, this and that. And I was like, okay. I took the paper from him, right, when he presented it to me. And I sat there for a minute reading it and asking questions about it. And I was like, huh, okay. And I was like, hey, so it says, you know, it says 4 years, but 11, it was like 4 years. And then like, it was like, it was like, you know, 6 years, reserve component or something like that. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. What does this mean? And they're like, oh, well, you signed this initial contract for active duty, right? And he explains active duty in a nutshell. And then he said the rest of the time is for you to, be, reserve in case we need you called up in a time of crisis or blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, wait, what if I decide to do more active duty time? And he was like, oh, well, if this is your initial contract, right? And he took a while to explain it, but in a nutshell, he said, if you end up doing more time than the reserve time on the back end of the time you serve active duty, you're not going to owe any reserve time. And then any contracts you do after that are going to be for a certain amount of time active duty. You're not going to be owed any more reserve or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I did not know that on average, the vast majority of people literally didn't read what they were signing. That shit just blew my mind. And I talked to him later after I came back. Because he was still there. He still had like a couple years. When I came back from like basic training and all that shit, did my home leave and all that, doing my R&R at home before I, immediately went to my unit and then immediately left and went somewhere else. I came back and on top of hometown stuff like recruiting and everything, he and I were shooting this shit, right? At this point, I'm a fully fledged soldier. Sure, I got to defer to him, formally, customs and courtesies for rank and all of that. But he was very laid back and relaxed about it. He was like, yeah, a lot of people don't read what they're doing. And I was like, really? How many? And he was like, well, I've been a recruiter for it was like 2 years and like 3 months or something. And he was like, you were the first one that actually took the time to read the contract. And I was like, oh, shit. Which, going into the military, I come from a military background. Going into the Army, my dad was Marine Corps. Grandpa on one side served in the Army, and then Grandpa on the other side served in the it was the Army Air Corps back then, I believe. Or no, it was the Army. It was like the Army Air Force or whatever. The Air Force before it was the Air Force. I am blanking on my shit at the moment. It's been a hot minute. So yeah, it runs in my family. So I knew a lot, of what to expect. And that's what I was going for. Plus, I didn't think I was, intelligent or smart enough to do shit else. I was like, you know what? I'm pretty dumb. Which I never ever thought that I would be capable of being smart. Most of my life it was like, you're treated like dog shit because you're male, you're a dude. So you being dumb is like expected and, well, quite literally drilled into your head by everybody. Even though on one side of the family there's a rocket scientist, on the other side there was a port engineer. So must have missed me somehow. That being said, I had a very good idea of what I was getting into and what I was going to want to try to do. And then I got a bit of a shock when I found out that the vast majority of people did not. Anyway, getting past that.
That's how I got stop lost and stuck in Iraq. So I was in for 5 years.
Yep.
When I got out of the military, I had to, once a year, I had to show up at the National Guard office and fill out paperwork saying this is where I live in case the Army had to call me back. Because at any point, they could have been like, we need more soldiers, so we're calling the people that are in the inactive ready reserve to go back into the reserve so that we can deploy them and they can die for their country. It'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be spectacular.
Yeah, that's about right, yeah. That's not a bad impression. Fool man can't get fooled again.
Fool me 3 times, can't get fooled again. That stupid laugh. That stupid laugh. Anyway.
You're good at replicating it.
I spent a lot of time watching him on TV.
I guess you did.
It just sounded like Butthead there.
Hey, babe, what's going on in Iraq?
It's just Dick Cheney, and why has nobody done that?
Coming soon to MTV.
Oh, shit.
Oh, hey there, Thram. I noticed you have braces. I have braces too. Anyway.
Where are those weapons?
Where are those weapons at?
Oh,
Thram?
shoot.
Oh my god. So I got out of the military. They told me I had to be in the inactive ready reserve, and every single year when I would show up to fill out the form, I would get inundated with, well, you really should consider joining the Army Reserves, not inactive ready reserve. If something happens, you could be made to go into the reserves anyway, so you might as well join the reserves because you might end up in it.
Yeah.
So you may as well do it now so it doesn't happen later. And I'm just like, I don't think that's how statistics work. I'm gonna play the odds on this one. I'll bet you guys won't call me back. They never did.
You know, you could get called up at any time, so why not go ahead and sign up? That way you know reliably where you're gonna be.
I kind of figured that wouldn't happen to me.
I knew quite a few people that stuff like this happened to. I also knew personnel that got pink slipped under Obama. Members of the officer corps and some of the senior non-commissioned officers at the time got pink slipped as well. But I also knew personnel that were essentially requisitioned from places like National Guard Bureau or National Guard or inactive ready reserve, who got called back in, after they did their initial stint because manpower problems. And, there were certain periods during my time in service where it seemed like we never had enough or we had too much. And usually it was in between funding and manpower. And so to pretend like they were trying to not waste money, especially during the Obama years, we'd be every little bitty piece of equipment, every single bit, even down to your freaking, the T-bolts when it came to your hitches on trailers and shit, which you could get a fucking matching one from any tool shop, right, for $5. Whatever. You do basically what's called Hands Across America, where everybody in the entire unit will line up and be within holding hands distance of each other and comb every area you're ordered to in order to find that one fucking T-bolt that was used on the trailer hitch for an outdated freaking trailer that the unit has had since the end of Vietnam, that they now use a Humvee to pull around and spilled shit out of the back of it all the goddamn time because the trailer hitch for the trailer and the trailer hitch for the freaking Humvee were two totally different magnitudes of tall and short. So yeah. But then at the same time, they'd always be having manpower issues. And then if you were talking about, you know, ETSing, separation, leaving the military, they'd have a sit down with you where all the leaders would basically try to gaslight you and shame you into staying because it's the right thing to do. And then later on, myself as an NCO, I'd be like, okay, look, this shit ain't getting any better. So if you decide it's time, I will facilitate it to the best of my ability. And then don't worry about the people up top because they're not in your freaking shoes. I got a lot of heat and a lot of trouble for that shit because I actually took the NCO's creed seriously. I thought everyone was supposed to. Apparently not. And literally nobody that's an officer knows the officer's creed exists. That being said, I've seen a lot of that type of shit happen to a lot of people. And I even seen it to where there were people that were given a choice when they were in court for pretty much any reason. Murderers, rapists, abusers of every type and every stripe. People who are literally going to go to prison, become a convicted felon. Or they could sign up for military service. I had quite a few of those. Surprisingly, they were some of the best soldiers I had. Well, except for one. His name was Brown, and he was brown, and he was literally incapable of being anything more than just a, dirty ghetto thug. That's it. He could not be anything more. There was nothing to be done about it. He ended up getting UCMJ'd. He got field grade Article 15'd. And then we separated him within 64 days. It took about 2 months and 2 days to separate him. But yeah, just a shit dude all the way around. Well, anyway. And the vast majority of them turned their lives around. Okay, they got in the army. Shit sucked. Until I showed them, hey, you need to think about it this way, right? A few of them actually got promoted. And they did very well for themselves, thankfully. Sure, they got out and got pretty much like lame duck jobs, but I envy them now because I don't have a job. But they're happy, they're healthy, things only improve for them, so that's good. If it's a happy ending, it doesn't really matter how it got there. But yeah, that being said, and I knew people who disappeared. Like, no shit. Disappeared. MIA. A few of them did it on purpose, I'm pretty sure. Just walked out of their barracks room, left all their shit nice and neat and orderly, just laid out so that somebody could easily take inventory. And they just walked out. They never came back. They went absent without leave. Which technically was falling under MIA in some cases, but in other cases not, because they suspected AWOL in a good few cases. But yeah. Anyway, sorry about the ranting. It's just I'm running down memory lane in my foggy brain.
Oh, what's the odds of me getting stop lost and fucked a second time?
Right? Yeah. They kept telling me, well, if you enlist in the Army Reserves, you'll get a year and a half of stabilization time, which basically means that I can't be deployed in that year and a half.
Okay.
I call bullshit on that one because I've been in the Army for 5 years, and I know that if the Army wants to deploy me somewhere, they will just deploy me somewhere. Stabilization time be damned.
Yeah.
Facts. Facts. Stabilization time. Now, I don't know if this has changed, but from when I first heard the word and when it was explained to me, because this is from my second or third reenlistment, one of the two. Um, they were like, "Oh, stabilization this, stabilization that." I was like, "Okay, just explain to me what that means." Here's how it was explained to me. It just meant that you would be at the same unit on the same post for a specified period of time. That's how it was explained to me at the time. Later, I heard about stabilization, meaning you wouldn't have to get deployed. But I talked to many different people about this. Never heard of that being the case, where someone got stabilization specifically not to get deployed. However, I wasn't everywhere and anywhere all at once. So, for all I know, it's actually happened. I never met anyone that got stabilization and did not get moved or changed somewhere or sent something or someone or whatever have you. So, about that one, I don't know. I think the first explanation I got was closest to the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
'cause I'm
But I can see recruiters throwing that around. Or retention NCOs, which are like internal recruiters for the military, the Army, right? A retention NCO or retention officer, I've had those too. Their job is to try and figure out how to keep people in, to keep people re-enlisting, and in some cases, convincing officers to continue commissions, right? Stuff like that. But yeah, that's just simply put in a nutshell, essentially. The stuff could have kind of changed since my time. I only ever truly had to deal with them if I had soldiers that wanted to see if they could do another stint, or if it was, in reference to myself, where I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try to go somewhere freaking else. I'm bored here. But yeah, so. And then stabilization, I can see it being thrown around a lot as like, them trying to make the deal sound better than it is. I would lean more towards honesty as a recruiter, but you get smacked down and you get in all sorts of trouble for telling the truth. Or at least you used to. I don't know if it's going to happen in the new Army or not.
pretty sure that the people that were in the Army marching band that were told that they had stabilization time, and then they sent them to be part of a convoy in Iraq. Pretty sure that they weren't too happy about the fact that you cut their stabilization time either.
Did you have a convoy with musicians?
I literally did run into musicians while I was in Iraq that were like, I'm in the Army band, I don't even know why I'm out here. They had them acting as a gunner on a vehicle because the Army was so desperate for people.
Is that in Al Qaeda? Hold, I got my trumpet.
You know what? I just hear that one jazz tune in my head. I can imagine someone in full battle rattle standing on top of an armored vehicle. Because I had an NCO who actually used to stand on top of the strikers and he would dance with a headphone in. So that, and this is what he said. Not sure if it worked or not, because he never got shot. So, but he would be on the striker and he'd be dancing. with like an earphone in. And he was like, I've seen one guy get waxed. It's not gonna happen to me, dude. I'm gonna be moving too much. They won't be able to keep a beat on me. And like, so that's what he did. I guess it worked. I don't know. But he was one of those guys who was like a party animal. So he loved to dance anyway. And he would dance to stuff like Kesha and everybody that came up around them times, or like Lady Gaga, or he listened to a lot of hot female singers, like their pop music and stuff. So, yeah, But anyway, but I hear that one jazz tune in my head. I just imagine someone in full battle rattle, like on top of any armored vehicle, you name it, just with a saxophone, just. It sounds like a good time.
Hold on, I think I put some Kenny G on this.
Just some terrorist. That's not Kenny G.
Play Freebird!
I can't play Freebird on this thing.
It's a trumpet, you idiot! You stupid terrorist!
I heard someone the other day say that their least favorite part of Freebird was the guitar solo. I'm like, that's what Freebird is!
I like the quiet part where nothing happens for the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, the army was so desperate for people during the initial invasion in Iraq that they were taking members of the army band and sending them out into combat roles. At the time, women were not allowed to be in combat roles.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they got around it was, oh no, this is a convoy. This is a completely different thing. This isn't a combat role. They're just riding in a truck. You gotta have security on the truck, so put them in the gun turret. Yeah. It's not a combat role though. Not a combat role.
Nope, not
a combat role.
Absolutely not. What would you?
All right, what was I going to say there? Wait, what did he say?
In the gun turret. Yeah. It's not a combat role though. Not a combat role.
Nope, not
a combat role.
Absolutely not. What would you ask that?
See, that's one thing that always struck me as odd because, sure, there's a difference between, combat and non-combat, right? Support isn't supposed to be in combat, but they are supposed to have the capacity for combat still. Because you're a military target. So yeah, like it never, and it still really doesn't make sense to me that even in a non-combat role, you don't train for having the capacity to conduct combat. Right? Because I mean, think about a certain convoy incident in Iraq where a female or two, I think it was a female, if I remember correctly. It was a pretty famous one. She was an enemy prisoner of war, and she was ganged on by Iraqi military because she was captured. And then in part of the description of the article when I was reading through it, and I was like, well, shit, this ain't good. It said they were trained to fire their F-16s in self-defense. And that never sat well with me. Because it's like, wait. You're going into a combat zone, but you're not trained on how to conduct combat, and you're not expected to, then why the fuck are you in a combat zone? Now people will bring up something stupid that's a nonsensical, equivalence. Like, oh, what about war reporters? Those are people taking the risk on their own to go and report what's going on. They're not military. They're not supposed to be combat personnel. And they are not supposed to be combatants. Unless they're Islamic reporters, then they're combatants because they feed information to terrorists. And quite a few times you find out they are terrorists. That being said, that never sat well with me. It's like, wait, because from everything I'd been trained on, everything I had done in basic training, you were a soldier first. What's a soldier? Everyone, okay? Why does your capacity for combat change just because you have a different specialty? And people make the argument all the time of like, oh, well, it's so that they can be very good at that job, essentially what it boils down to as their argument. And I'm like, okay, but infantry does the same shit. We do the job of 88 mics. We can do the job of a whiskey. We can do the job of deltas. Actually, there's a lot of shit that I, as infantry, when I was infantry, had to cover down on and train on and get cross-training on because we didn't have enough personnel for these other specialties, and therefore we had to do a lot of shit ourselves. Yeah, we had support, but we had to do the majority of support on our own. Sustainability, mostly on our own. Throughout my entire military career, easily close to just 30% of anything and everything I needed came from our support elements. The rest of it we had to source ourselves. Or we had to do it ourselves. Or we had to conduct ourselves in such a capacity and position. Need to go scout something, but we don't got scouts? All right, bust out the book. Let's do it. Oh, we don't have enough medics. Okay. Time to get everybody trained up on the highest level medical. When I was in garrison, I would send my guys out, using there was only so much availability during a certain time for the now it's the tuition assistance program. It had a different name back in the day, where you could apply for programs that gave you extra skills. Right. And then later on, you had that through like JKO and AKO and all that, where you could have extra skills you could put on top of your military record. And so a lot of the time, I would send my guys to EMT. I'd put in the paperwork, I'd make the request, I'd be like, hey, command, this could be an asset and a boon for us, in our unit. Or if the unit wouldn't allow that for them to make time, I would have my people find the time. I'd be like, okay, here's a task. Your task is there's this class that's EMT there's EMT and then there's EMT, there's CPR, EMT, and then EMT Advanced or EMTA, if I remember it correctly. And so I'd send my personnel to go do that too, because we had a shortage of medics. And the next thing you know, we were overstrength on medics, and they sent them everywhere, and we were understrength again. Freaking whatever. But anyway, that being said, it never sat well with me that everyone was not still strictly a soldier first. Which means everybody should be able to do the basic fundamentals that infantry can. But then their MOS is their primary focus. Apparently, that was not the case. I don't know if it is now, but even when I was still in, it still was not the case.
I honestly think I would probably say that the Army was both the best and worst job I've ever had.
It has some high highs and some low lows.
Yep, it's had some really, really awesome and incredible moments, and other moments were just complete and utter total shit.
We're the top 3 high highs.
Ooh, the top 3 best moments of while I was in the Army?
Yeah.
The convoy live fire mission. It was super fun, and it was the one where I was only supposed to do one, but I ended up doing all 3 of them. Like, I went on all 3 of them. And It's like each convoy live fire was like 2 hours long. I went on all 3 of them because I had a grenade launcher and other people didn't want to go. They were like, well, we got a bunch of like practice grenades here. We got too many practice grenades. So if you have a grenade launcher, give your grenade launcher to someone else and have them go on it. And I'm just like, yeah, can I just go all 3 times? I love shooting this thing. I'm getting real good with it.
I remember that story, and I assumed that would have been one of the top 3. Yep.
That one. What else?
Oh, man. Good times. Good times. Yeah, a lot of people miss out on some really fun stuff because they just don't want to do work. They're like, well, I'd love to go to the range, but I don't want to clean up the guns. Or I want to go out to the training area, but I don't want to be in uniform and have to report in. And I want to go camping, just not have to do what I'm told. Or getting to go with other units, right? And go have fun with them, which I volunteered for every chance I could because it was always a good time for me. You know, despite any bad stuff that happened, I always loved field training. I always loved going out in the sticks and doing our thing. I always had great fun time. I miss it terribly. If I could get back in, I would. Well, yeah. Yeah, if I could get back in, I would. Especially with how shit is now. Active duty, you know, lower enlisted is getting paid better than I am on my pension.
3 great things happened. Here's one. Oh fuck, it was just the one.
Fuck, it was just the one. No, just the fact that I learned so much about guns was really cool. And it was also very interesting. I don't necessarily want to say good or bad, but it was very interesting going to a country that's so vastly different from the United States.
Ah, yes, world experience.
Yeah, being in Iraq in a country that was so completely different.
My favorite part of the military is when I found out about MREs, and then I ate them for 2 weeks and realized, oh, I haven't shat in a while.
Oh, gee, that might be it.
Eventually, I did have to defecate, and it came out like a snake's jaw unhinged.
Oh, God, stop. Stop. That's horrible. That's horrifying. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yeah, the thing is with the MREs is a lot of the food is like fortified or it's enriched or it's made to be very condensed. And it's a lot of calories in a small package. It's something like, I want to say it's something like 2,000 calories per MRE or close to it. And, or no, maybe it was like, maybe it's like 1,500 per package. No, I think 2,000 is closer to the actual number, at least from what I remember. I also remember sea rats, which was the canned rations. We still had a bunch of those rattling around back in the day. But yeah, which were both good and bad. Sometimes it made you sick, sometimes they didn't. Really depended on which can you opened. MREs were a lot more consistent. You could kind of, you know, kind of predict and have an idea of like what was gonna go on after eating this thing. But they weren't bad. They weren't bad. I had worse when I was a kid, you know, just when I was a kid. Growing up being literally destitute sucks. Anyway, so I ate better in the military than I did as a kid. Funny enough. Not that it could really be helped, but it's neither here nor there. When for you sugar is a luxury. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, with MREs, like, you know, at first it was kind of like, okay, this is gonna kind of suck, but it's not bad. At least for me. A lot of people were like, oh man. And people would swap out pieces of meals all the time. It wasn't until later on that MREs got somewhat improved that people were much better and okay with them. People still kind of preferred the hot meals. So what would happen is that you'd have your support element or your support platoon, and they would go to the mobile like kitchen, get all the food that was prepared by the cooks out in the field, or if the field was close enough, they just prepare it in one of the defects on post. You go pick it up on post, put it in the back of the trucks, and drive it out there to the training area. And people still preferred those. to MREs. And then towards the middle of my career, people, it was a toss up 50-50 essentially. Some people liked the hot meals, some people liked MREs more, really depending on who you were talking to. Me, I didn't really care about either one, although Ranger meals were good. The Ranger MREs, freaking excellent. Awesome. You know, like those things came with like Cliff Bars and everything. They were great. You know, and a lot of, you know, they even had like in the Ranger MREs, they even had like a consolidated omelet that was like, all you had to do was like heat it up and make it hot, and it was nice and juicy and sizzled and everything. And it was, oh man, it was good. And they were stuffed with a lot more shit and actually vacuum sealed. The Ranger MREs were great. I only saw them a few times during my career. They're very rare, and they're hard to get a hold of, I think. But yeah, those were great. I would eat those all day. But yeah, that being said, you know, like, still it's meant to sustain you and maintain you while you're in combat conditions. It's not supposed to be a gourmet meal. It's not supposed to make you happy or sad. It's just supposed to fill you up and keep you functional and active to replenish, rest, and recover. That's about it.
You put that image in my head and now it will never go away. I hate you.
I don't know how nothing tore. And I was not the only one.
No, that happened to me too. I just preferred not to think about it. It wasn't ever described to me in such a visceral way.
How did that thing come out of me? That is basically a fire log.
I do remember thinking that several times, just going like to the bathroom and then like standing up and just being like, call a medic, that's not right.
Call a priest. Call the Ghostbusters. I think this is possessed. Speaking of food in boot camp stories.
Man, the amount of times we went to like the National Training Center or the Joint JRTC, Joint Readiness Training Center, and the proper latrines would be clogged because people would dump log all freaking day in there. My God, you're better off using the porta-johns.
This is the first couple of weeks, and I had already caught pneumonia/bronchitis.
Fun.
So I was on light duty. I was specially marked out. I wasn't allowed to wear boots. I had to wear my Go Fasters.
Ooh.
But we were doing some exercises or some drills or something. I don't remember. And a packet of crackers fell out of somebody's pocket. Somebody had taken crackers from the chow hall.
That's a big no-no.
And put it into their pocket to eat later.
Mm-hmm.
That is verboten. You are not permitted to take food out of the chow hall.
No, food stays in the chow hall or in your tummy.
And the drill instructor put us all online and said, everybody empty your pockets now. He was not the only one who had taken food.
Uh-oh.
6 or 7 other people had pockets full of peanut butter and crackers and whatnot.
Oh my God.
So everybody had to go outside and do jumping jacks for 2 hours.
Yeah, I think that happens multiple times in every...
Except this guy.
Yeah!
Hooray, I had pneumonia! The doctor gave me a bong to blow into every couple of hours to get rid of my pneumonia.
Oh, God.
That was my treatment. Practice breathing for a while. Try
Going to med hold and them just being like, okay, you're not immediately dying. Here's water and Motrin or Tylenol or something. Feel better, kid. Get back out there. Brother. I think I was sick for only a day. Oh, yeah, I was sick for only a day in basic training. And I missed one of the battle march and shoots. It's where you're basically like a light fighter, and you end up getting engaged for it's something like 10 clicks. And the entire time you have to do everything in the book that they throw at you. And then they also have like they also had like specialty hung targets, E-type silhouettes, all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, you had to swap out a lot of stuff a lot of times very fast. I missed one of them, and then they did another one the day after that, and I ended up getting to do that one. But yeah, I had like 24-hour flu. I'm pretty sure it was 24-hour flu. Well, anyway.
And get the ball to the top of the bong. When you've done that, you'll know you have gotten your lungs back. So I had that for a couple weeks. If I'd had it any longer, I would have gotten held back. Thank God it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Who wants to be in that hellhole?
When I was in basic training, I grabbed a packet of crackers, and sometimes the machines don't do a very good job of separating them.
Okay.
So when I grabbed it, I went to put it on my tray and started walking away, and there were 4 things of crackers all stuck together. I got stopped immediately by one of the drill sergeants, who started screaming at me about how I'm not better than everybody else and I don't deserve that many crackers. This is one of the times that I got singled out. It's one of the times that made me get very good at becoming wallpaper.
Yes.
And just not standing out ever. I am a sensitive boy.
Yes.
I am a sensitive boy.
A soft soul.
And there are 3 grown men screaming at me, and I am trying my hardest not to start crying.
You have 8 crackers! You're not allowed to have that! That is 6 surplus!
They made me put all of the crackers in my mouth and say the soldier's creed. I could get 4 in my mouth, and it came out as
I don't know how drill instructors don't laugh at you guys.
I don't know either.
There are a couple of times where I've seen one crack a smile and then quickly turn away and put their face in their cover.
Yeah. After being in character for that long, I think unless you're just a heartless person, when something stupid like that happens, you kind of just have to start laughing eventually. We were doing a brass and ammo
or they just straight up, do a redirection with it. I had a drill sergeant who was real good at that. We would do, somebody or myself sometimes also as well, would do something absolutely just horrendously, outrageously stupid in such a way that it was hilarious. And this drill sergeant, he would crack a smirk that everybody hated. Because he'd crack that smirk at you, and you're like, oh, fuck. Ran for it, boys. So you gotta suck in the nuts a bit. Tighten the butt cheeks. And then he would start cracking the hell up on his way to you. And he would let you see him as he did it. And by the time he got to you, it was out of his system. And then he brought you from all the way up here to as far down through the floor as possible. He was really good at that. The dude was a master of it. He was awesome. He was great. But yeah, and we had another drill sergeant who never did. But what he would do, right, is that he would go from ultra serious, right, stone-faced, to giving you like a question mark with his eyeballs. And that was the closest he got to anything like that. But then, of course, we'd hear him, heeing and hawing, laughing while they were in the drill sergeant's room. So, yeah, he did, but he was good at concealing it. But, yeah, man, good times.
Shakedown at the end of a firing range, which I'm assuming you know what the brass and ammo shakedowns are, yes?
They want to make sure you don't have live rounds on you.
Yeah.
They don't want you to go full metal jacket when you get back.
Yeah. So we're doing a brass and ammo shakedown.
No brass, no ammo, drill sergeant. Then what the fuck is this?
And somebody, of course, in every single basic training cycle says, "No ass, no bramo, drill sergeant," and then everybody laughs at it.
No ass, no bramo.
No ass, no bramo. So drill sergeant gets up to one of the guys, grabs onto his blouse pocket.
Yes.
Right up on the chest. Mm-hmm. There was something in there. What is this, Private? The fuck is this? The guy he did this to was this whole corn-fed country motherfucker. Always spoke in a super deep voice. What is this, Private? Private goes, "Oh, that's my nipple, drill sergeant." And the drill sergeant just goes, and just immediately starts laughing. Everybody is just fucking dying. The drill sergeant cannot keep it together. Everyone is just cracking up, and he's just like, what is actually in your pocket? He's like, it's trash, drill sergeant. He's just, God damn it.
They try so hard not to break character. Our friend Kirk told me a story similar to that, where they were doing mountain climbers, kicking his legs back and forth, and he jumps up and stops. And the drill instructor says, "Why'd you stop doing mountain climbers?" He responds, "I reached the top of the mountain, drill sergeant."
Oh, shit. Mountain climbers, man. Good for cardio. Not very fun, especially with broken back. Thrice broken back. That being said, from MikeBurnFire, best military experiences, campfire stories. Of course, I liked it. All sub. All right, so that being said, I keep forgetting to remove Nilia's stuff from my stuff because I cloned her shit and I got to send it back over to her. Anyway, that being said, what did you think? You let me know in the comments down below. All right, you know what time it is. Be good, be safe, make a life for yourselves. I'll see you in the next one. I'm Batty7, actual former homeless veteran, Blast Cat Badger, out.